Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Dreamcatchers. We are here today in the Red Bank studio. We are so happy to have our new friend, Kathleen, here with us live. And we have a friend joining us via Zoom from New York City, Shayna. We're going to have everybody introduce themselves in a minute, but we are back today for an episode of What's Your Story? And what we're really thrilled about today is the fact that we're interviewing people who have decided to make a career, or the universe has decided for them, or they decided for themselves to make a career out of art, which we find to be super inspiring. As Marissa and I always say, there is a job out there for everyone. There's a lid for every pot. There's a path for every person. And we are just so excited to have both Shayna and Kathleen here today to talk about how they made this their career path. We were supposed to have another guest with us this morning, Kathleen Palmieri. She had to cancel last minute, but we are going to highlight her again also today, and a couple other artists that are in our orbit that we wanted to touch on. Marissa, do you have anything you wanted to add to that before we get started?
So I just wanted to say good morning. And I think that, through the years of helping people find what it is that they want to do, right? There's a difference between doing a job and a soul's purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And there aren't that many people that get to honor their soul's purpose out of the gates, so to speak. And I think that we are now living, and I've been working for a while, Kathleen. We're now living in a time where
We've all been working a while.
It's okay.
Maybe not
it's okay.
Shayna, but
Shayna's not been working for a while because I remember when we were interviewing her for internships. It's fine. That was like a long time ago for her, but it was Tuesday for me. So anyways, what I was going to say is we're living at a time now where we're blessed to come up in a world where you're actually more focused on trying to honor your soul's purpose. And I won't take credit for that, but I do think that Jamie and I and the energy we put out into the world and people like us and the energy that they put out into the world have helped to shepherd other humans to think, hey, listen, I don't want to feel like I'm working. I want to feel like I'm honoring my truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, we spend all these times, all these podcasts, 80-something podcasts, unpacking stories about how people find the dream job in a job, if it's not the dream job. We wanted to take a moment because we happen to be surrounded by incredibly talented, successful artists in our community.
Yeah.
Actually.
In fact, today, this episode is made possible by our friends at Salon 685, who are artists themselves. If you think about it, they're hair artists, and Ming and his team here at Shared Universe.
Notice how I called out that I didn't think my hair looked blonde enough. Sorry, Regina.
That was before we were live.
Yeah.
But now she knows. The guys here at Shared Universe, they're artists. They're sound and podcast artists. It's another medium that we have all found to express ourselves creatively. So we are thrilled to have you guys. Would love to have you introduce yourselves to our audience, and then we can just ask you a few questions. We're going to start with Shayna today, only because she has to roll, because she may or may not have a busy week ahead, which she's going to tell us about. So Shayna, go ahead and introduce yourselves to the audience. And by the way, shameless plug, Shayna has been an OG fan of the Dreamcatchers since before she graduated college. She was introduced to us through her friend Emma, that she reminded me was Emma Gill, who I met through the Michigan connections that we have.
Emma Gill, Emma Gill babysat?
Yes.
Yeah.
Emma Gill.
So Emma Gill, shout out to Emma, was I met through the Michigan alumni recruiting that I do. Go Blue. I always say Michigan on these podcasts. Ming's not here today, but he always says Go Blue back because he went to Michigan too. And she introduced us to Shayna, who was at that time struggling to figure out what she wanted to do. And here she is with an incredible story today. So go ahead, Shayna, introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, I was an OG Dreamcatcher, and you guys were such a tremendous support system, before graduation, after graduation. And, I was a lucky 2020 COVID graduate. So worked my entire life to try and get a job for graduation. And then the world fell apart, it happened to everybody. So during that time, you guys were just incredible for keeping us on track. It'll happen. You'll get a job. And I, during that time was kind of lost like everyone else, trying to apply to a million different jobs. And it's difficult when you don't have a connection to, get a job in New York City. That was my dream. So I ended up working, my family my dad is the founder of Detour Gallery in Red Bank. And
Right
at the
behind
time,
us, where we're sitting right
yes,
now, through that wall across the street.
at the time, the longtime director, Runa Egenes, was moving back to Norway because, he wanted to be with his family. So I sort of jumped into this role of helping to, support him and just organize the art, learn from him. And I did that for about 9 months. And it truly saved me during COVID because I'm like a very optimistic person. But like everyone else, I was just so down, and being surrounded and immersed in the art was an absolute lifesaver for me. Just cataloging the art, taking pictures of it, making it organized, and, being able to talk to people, learn from Runa. Anyway, 9 months later, I then got a job working at Time in sales, in
Just
media.
remember.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I
You
really
just
wanted
sent
to
us
move to
an
New York
email 'cause
City.
you were so proud.
Yeah, you were so happy. Yeah.
Yeah. And long story short, I did it for the last 2 years and I absolutely loved it. My dream has truly been to move to New York City. And, things started to kind of change there. My manager left and a few people left. And I just kind of felt like it was time for a change. So I talked to my dad and I said, I kept saying, I miss the gallery, I miss the gallery. And he said, well, what made you leave? And it was my wish to move to New York City and kind of get my head handed to me in a corporate role. And, he said, well, what if we opened up one in New York City? So I thought about it. I thought about it for a few weeks. I didn't even tell my mom. I didn't talk to anyone about it because I knew this was a decision that had to come from my heart. And I knew that I had to go through the pros and cons alone before I talked to anyone else to make sure I wasn't influenced, because it's a big thing. And he said, I'm offering you this opportunity because it is a big financial undertaking, but if it's going to be anyone, it's going to be you. Like, it's going to be you. I know you can do it. I wouldn't offer this to you if you couldn't do it. And I thought about it and we're like, let's do it. So here we are. We're having the opening on Thursday and I am so excited. My stomach is in knots, but it's a good kind of nervous.
Oh my gosh, Shayna.
That's very exciting.
That is amazing. And I have to just say, while we're live, I said this before we came on air, but shout out to the Rumson Fairhaven Journal, which is the local magazine that comes to the house for free. And Chris and I always say we love
big
so
geeks
much,
and read all of
huge
them.
geeks, and I read them all while I'm like eating dinner or like just flipping around. And I'm reading, and I just so happened to last night, which obviously everyone that's a Dreamcatcher listener knows, big believer in the universe and timing and energy. And I just so happened to start reading this article last night, knowing that we were having an art, podcast today. And I see Shayna. And I react because it's Shayna and she's a Dreamcatcher and Detour, not even realizing that they're opening their New York City literally 3 days from now. I learned that, by the way, shameless, in the parking garage just now. As I was walking up, I was going on Detour's Instagram because, doing my homework, as I always tell people to do before an interview. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're opening like the 27th of April. I'm like, that's tomorrow. Like, that's tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thursday. And I was like, it's not tomorrow, Shayna. You have to but I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just so grateful for Shayna to come today and share her story, especially given the week she has ahead of her, and how incredibly proud we are to share her story and feel like we had anything, even a small smidge to do with it.
I also think, listen, something that there needs to be said, right? So we as a community are not always born into opportunity. And sometimes when we're born into opportunity, we don't necessarily want it. We want the same even playing field as everyone else, which is hard to understand unless you're in that position.
Mhm.
Jamie and I worked on our own for many years before coming into the family business, and working in the family business, which is a podcast that probably is worth 10 episodes deep for
And
anybody
maybe alcohol.
Yeah.
To talk about
Working in a family business and marking your place and earning your keep and seeing the innards, so to speak, is its own anomaly that unless you've worked in a family business, you can't really relate.
That could be a good episode, working for the family.
Yeah, well, Shayna would listen.
Yeah.
So I think, you coming to this and weighing it and deciding that you wanted
there's that
to
New York
do
City
it,
siren.
and then
I love it. I miss it.
I mean, too.
Yeah, it does.
Does
Smells
sound
like
like home.
sound like home.
And having your dad roll the dice in your honor. And then also, not for nothing, I mean, I have been, because I love art and because when I moved here, I tripped over Holly Suzanne Rader, who at that time, I know, I DM'd her this week or last week
We
when we
wanted to see if
decided
we
if
could
we could get
she
her
could
on
join.
last minute.
Yeah.
But we'll send love. We've worked with her through the years in the past. She's up north now, but she was the installation at the time when I moved down here. She was also teaching classes, which my daughter took and my mother took. And I have a piece of hers that she did custom for me in my home. Amongst the one that my daughter did at probably 9 years old that's hanging in my living room.
That looks like it's
Yes.
done by an adult.
And I had
It's
gone
incredible.
to Detour and was really moved by it and learned a little bit. I don't remember off the top of my head, but like this wasn't your dad's first job. Meaning like he had a whole other life before pursuing this life. So for him to be able to turn to you and say, hey, listen, if anyone's going to do this, it's going to be you. He's coming at it from a very worldly place because he did a whole other thing before doing art. So I'm very excited for you. So tell us, now, obviously, when we start these podcasts out, we don't normally do them in segments like this, but we're doing that for your time schedule. What did you want to be originally when you were growing up, which was like 4 minutes ago, but like also let's just give it some context.
Right. Yeah. Like you mentioned, my dad, he was an automobile dealer for 50 years, but he's also been collecting art for 50 years. And Detour in New Jersey has almost been more, one of the artists put it like, it was almost like a museum space. It was like, it was never really the one thing that he was not a lunatic about being a business. Now, of course, this is going to be a business here because this is going to be my livelihood. And I want to show these artists that deserve a world stage. They deserve it. So that's a whole reason why we're bringing them to New York City. But, you know, he has lived a million lives and neither of my parents went to college. They made their own way. But he was an automobile dealer. I loved cars growing up. I was like a little girl who was obsessed with cars. So, you know, and also with that, he wanted me to always have a business. So as a side note, like this was kind of a happy medium because he always wanted that like push, you know, any parent.
Yeah. Our dad was
a real lemonade stand.
Yeah, you guys know, and you understand. Like there was always that little like in the back of those little comments that they want us to do our own thing, be like them. This is like my happy medium of doing it in my own way. So I think probably do something with cars. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I went to school for marketing, but I think I love the car business, but he sold it 7 years ago. So then I kind of switched and decided to go corporate. He also owned several restaurants. So I toured with that. My mom was in the restaurant business. I toured with that my first year at Delaware. I was in the hospitality school. So I kind of went through a few different stages, but definitely was always very keen on being an entrepreneur. Just didn't know whether it's going to be an automobile dealer or a restaurant.
When you're raised by people that have that kind of work ethic, it's very difficult for it not to seep in through your pores.
Right.
And I think what you're touching on, Shayna, too, is important to share, that it's okay to feel like when you're young, we say this to people all the time. It's like you look up, you look to your left, and you look to your right. That's what you try to figure out what you want to do. You're like,
or figure out what you don't want to do.
Exactly. Or figure out what you don't want to do, right? So people growing up think about who they know and love and what they do and whether or not it's something they'd want to do. And either you're completely against it or it's something you're interested in or both. But, you know, and I don't blame you for after college kind of tripping into corporate media sales, because that's really a good use of your skill set. If you're going to do a little bit of a journaling, which we do with our candidates all the time, like, what are your strengths? Obviously, we can tell Shayna can speak. She can talk publicly. She can sell a product. She was raised by salespeople, hospitality people. That doesn't mean you have to work in media sales. And obviously, you learn that's something that maybe you wanted to try out, but it wasn't necessarily something you innately want to do forever. But all of these experiences obviously have brought you to where you are now. So give us a quick overview. We'll just skip ahead into the opening this Thursday. Anything you'd like to, plug or say about the gallery?
When am I coming?
Yeah, we'll have to come. Exactly.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So tell us a little bit about that. What kind of artists are you featuring to start?
Well, you'll have to come also. You just mentioned Holly, and I absolutely adore Holly's work. She is like an OG Detour. She is actually having her solo show, and it's going to be this like interactive, crazy, amazing show on November 18th. So you guys have to come for
That's
that.
right.
Save the date.
Save the date, November 18th. All right.
You
We'll
have
go
to come for
together and
that.
make it a date.
Yeah. So
Jamie's
Yeah, go
actually
ahead.
writing it down.
I am.
by the way.
yes.
I will come
Like
to that.
she
Looking forward.
is.
We love
Her
her.
work is just, it just makes you so happy. I stole a piece from my dad and like literally hijacked it and put it in the detour van one day and hung it above my bed. And now makes me so happy every day.
I love that. And I saw Holly was a featured artist last year at See Here Now, and I was able to see a bunch of her work. And actually, speaking of See Here Now, another one of our friends that wanted to be here today that couldn't make it because her work is being literally transported as we speak to Nantucket is our friend Renee Levin, who just went back to work as an artist. Her stuff, if you have not seen it, is absolutely incredible. It's the most realistic shells, ropes, nautical. Have you seen her work? It's incredible. And another person that you like are talking to, and I've literally have known her now for a few years.
She was your cabana mate.
Like a cabana mate. We're friends. I literally had no idea she was this talented. I'm like, why are you not shouting about this? And she's like, well, I haven't really been doing it.
And she's modest.
Very modest. And we tried to get her on this morning, but she's literally waiting for the trucks taking her work. She's now going to be the artist in residence at the White Elephant in Nantucket. Wow. So definitely check out her work too, by the way.
And what I love, and so art, as we know, is so personal, right? And so what's interesting about this conversation, and I want you to come back to some of the artists you're going to be featuring and what the big events will be for this week before you go, but it almost really takes two to tango in art.
Yeah.
Almost, right? You have to have the artist, and then you have to have the person that knows how to get that art to the world. Because artists tend to be, although expressive in their work, not very expressive.
Actually, Kathleen and I talked about, and we'll unpack this a little bit when Shane has to go.
They tend to be more reserved.
There's a lot of artists, she said, that she just knowing us at this point up until today and now knowing us, how many artists could use that kind of help getting their light to the world.
Because they can see the world in ways that many people can't, but they're limited in the places where they would need to sing up or dial up, right? So you need people like your dad and you to discover, empower, encourage, create a pipeline so that these people can monetize their talent, which is very difficult to do.
Yeah, and art schools don't teach business.
No,
so
art schools are for art. So what I was thinking is so incredibly phenomenal about this roster of women, right? So it just so happens to be women, but the roster of women in my brain, in my home, or eventually in my home. So I have a piece of Holly's. I also have a piece of this woman, Jill Ricci, who is incredibly talented and runs this coffee. A gallery, thank you. A gallery, Marissa. A gallery in Asbury. And what is the name of her gallery now? Parlor. Thank you, Kathleen. What would I do without you? And then
Who needs coffee? Just ask Kathleen.
And then also we had Kathleen Palmieri, who was supposed to be on here, who also is all their perspectives are so different. So, when you go to a museum, right? And we all learn about different museums in school and whatnot. And there's some museums I'll walk in and I'm like, nah. Literally, like, why am I here? Where's the coffee? When can I leave? And then on the other hand, there's some art that really speaks to you. Yeah. And these women, all different. So you are more fine. Renee, I would actually she's is it considered fine art if she's doing, not doing people?
Yeah.
Because her stuff is right. Hers is objects,
still life.
Coastal and still life. And then Kathleen and Holly and Jill are
contemporary. Like
I don't want to say it's contemporary. What do you call? What's Holly called? Shayna,
like pop art.
It's like not even pop art. It's she has different textures. It's a word I'm thinking of that I love.
Collage.
Like a collage art.
Collage art, yeah.
He's like mixed media. Yeah.
Mixed media. Thank you. That's the words I was looking for. So mixed media. I tend to respond to mixed media, and I tend to respond to things that resemble photography because I really like photography. Because I really like
photography. Kathleen, I'm such a fan of her work already. Like, I looked her up when we started speaking. Your stuff looks like you're actually looking at a photograph.
Yes.
It's unbelievable.
It's
The
unbelievable.
detail.
And it's really
and crowds, which I know is kind of a specialty of yours. You know, she painted something of a march. She does like the lawn at PNC, the beach. Like, you're just like, how is that not a picture? I don't understand. Like, I don't understand. Like, I literally am like, how is that not a picture? I'm like staring.
awesome.
And I'm like, also, that's how I feel about Renee's. I'm like, how is that
Yeah.
not a picture of a shell? It's like a real shell. Anyway.
So how are you, who have you, anyone that you want to, or maybe you're not allowed, but anyone you want to talk about that we should direct our attention to for the New York Gallery?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, this opening show. So basically, we really just want to get the doors open, and we're doing an eclectic group show. So it's going to be, we have a few select detour artists. We're bringing something new to the neighborhood. I think some of it's pretty crazy, and I think it's really going to make people like, some people are going to hate it. Some people are going to love it. Some people are going to, I think it's really going to be things people have never seen before. And we have, our artists are, we have 4 that are going to be there, which is great because they'll be able to like, represent their work and like be there to meet people. But we have James Andrew Brown, Ashley Sumner, Michael Labua, Michael Callis, Willie Tobert, who does these he made this new piece that's going to knock people's socks off. It is very, political, and I'm not an artist myself, so I'm just so awe-inspired by art because I'm not an artist. So I'm just so, just when I see people's work, I'm like, how do you do that? Because I don't have an ounce of that in me. I'm creative in other ways. I got the business end back, but the art end, it's just something that's so incredible. And like you guys, you're so, inspired by it when you see it. But we have these, and Samuel Weinberg, we have just a totally eclectic show. And then there's a Michael Callis behind me. So like, this is super fun.
And that I'm looking at that,
Right.
and that would be considered pop art, right?
Yeah, like this is like super bright. He does like aerosol cans with like stencils. So we have a few, pieces of his, and then so it's going to be a group show. And then
where is the gallery? Where's the location?
It's on 23rd between 10th and 11th.
Oh my God, you can walk there because I know where you live.
Yeah.
Good for you.
It's 2,700 square feet.
But I think the through line is that art is hope.
Art is hope.
Art is hope. And so what speaks to you is where you see the hope in the world. And that's her show is, that's those artists' definition of hope and joy.
It's true. They're being able to showcase their hard work.
Yeah.
Well, in the interest of your time, Shane, I know you're busy. Couple other fast questions so that we can get these little sound bites and get in our dreamcatchery things that we like to ask. Do you have any advice for people that are struggling? I mean, obviously, I know you were gifted this opportunity to go into a family business, and I know that it's not lost on you that you were able to do that, as you're very humbled by it. And so Marissa and I are as well. What is your advice for people that are around your age, newly-ish out of school, that are feeling the things that you were feeling? Like, granted, you had this opportunity to make change, but do you have any advice for people or anything that keeps you motivated or moving?
I think something that my goal for, 2023 was put yourself out of your comfort zone. Like I don't get that scared of things. Like I'm loud and wild, and like I make fun of myself and I embarrass myself and I just pick myself back up and like whatever. My friends think I'm insane sometimes, but
Same
like something my mom said to me last week that really stuck with me about this. Cause sometimes you just get in a whirlwind and you're in your own head and you're focused on what you're doing. And she said, Sheena, I'm so proud of you. This was a very bold move. Like you could have stayed in your job, your 9 to 5, your corporate job, which was incredible. Like when I told people that I was working at Time, they were like, that's so cool, which it was. And it was an incredible learning experience. But doing this on my own, she said, and I think, so that's kind of my theme right now. It's like, be bold. I'm not an artist. I don't know a lot about art. So I need to hire someone who knows a lot about art soon.
We didn't hire anybody. We're good.
We're ready to help.
I need your help. So be bold. I would say be bold. Put yourself out of your comfort zone. Like this is my first stomach ache in a while, but sometimes when you're nervous, it's a good thing. Like it means you care. So, take the chance, I guess.
Sure.
Where I'm at.
Look at that young wisdom.
I'm like taking notes on Shayna. I'm like, Shayna's teaching me
Young
something.
wisdom. I love it.
Be bold. Take yourself out of your comfort zone. And, the beauty of why we love these conversations and why we love the Dreamcatchers and what it creates is, our listeners can reach out to us. We could connect you to Shayna or somebody like Shayna or Kathleen that's if you're feeling these feelings of like, I work in corporate, but I really want to work in creative and I know a lot about art, like, or whatever the case
Or like
may be.
Shayna's dad, who ran a company for 50 years and then took his money and his interest and put it toward his passion because he could.
Yeah.
Just because people can doesn't mean they do.
Correct.
Right? So there's a difference there. And that's what you're reacting to. You didn't have to do this. You wanted to. Yeah. And what I love, what we try to create with our platform is the word support, right? So the reason why you feel good about being bold is because you're supported. Mm-hmm. People believe in you. People know that if you trip and fall, you're going to get right back up because you have that backbone and that strength and that threshold. Sometimes people don't have that and they still need to feel it, right? So we're trying to create, by speaking up and combining all of our voices and doing these episodes, support if it is the intangible kind. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes you just need to know that you're not the only one that wants to do something and wants to be bold and just needs that extra push to do it. So proud of you, Shayna.
You know what? While we still have you here, and then we'll let you go and we'll chat with Kathleen. I want to just take 2 minutes to have Kathleen introduce herself and do her piece so that we can get the perspective quickly of somebody that's the artist and somebody that's selling the art, just because I think that is such a different kind of perspective of the type of guests that we have. And then obviously we'd love to unpack more of Kathleen's story. And if you're able to stick around, Shayna, obviously you're more than welcome. But I know she mentioned that she had a crazy day and was only able to join us for the beginning. So go ahead, Kathleen. Little delayed, but go ahead. I'd love to hear from you and tell us about yourself and your art.
Yep. So I'm Kathleen Bosley, and I am an oil painter, and I paint crowds and really how people gather. So all of that started I was doing a cross-country tour, and we were going to all the baseball games, and I realized I really don't like baseball, but I found I started painting the crowd, and I was absolutely mesmerized by all the people there, and they were wearing colors, and it was like, oh my gosh, like they were identifying. It's almost the same thing of like what gangs do, is how you identify with your crowd and you become a group in these groups. And then I started researching it, and the way that you leave a stadium is actually, stadiums are designed like anthills, and you exit in a line, and you just naturally know how to do this, and they design you to walk in a single file line just like ants. And I've been painting that for 20 years since.
Wow.
It's just, by the way, I did not know that. Also, I am always, because I'm super sensitive, which we've talked about so many times in these podcasts, when I leave a stadium, I've never talked about this out loud, I'm always aware of how we're like a mass of people exiting.
Yeah.
And I always wonder if everyone else is thinking that, or if it's just people like me.
It's just us.
Okay. Everybody else has had too many beers. They don't care.
No,
I'm
like I've never thought about how we're exiting. I'm like,
constantly thinking about, look at all the people we're just following the path. And that, these people could probably cut you off in the parking lot and give you the I know what. But right now,
you're all cohesively working.
You're all wearing
together.
the same outfit.
Yeah.
You're all in that same headspace. I see you.
Yes.
Okay. My inside matches that. I get that.
Okay. So, and you've been doing that for 20 years. And where do you sell your work?
So I'm in a gallery at the Painting Center in New York. So I sell through the Painting Center.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Shayna, are you familiar with the Painting Center? You got to go check it out.
Oh, I got to go check it out.
Where is that located, by the way?
It is on 27th Street.
On the west side?
Yep.
Same hood.
Yeah, same hood.
I think we're gonna have to take a tour of Chelsea. Marissa and I actually, when I first moved into the city, lived right there with Marissa, as her roommate / and when I say roommate, I mean I lived in her living room. We didn't have enough money to put the wall up.
Yep.
So we just had a bed in the living room and her bedroom, and it was, that's what you do.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And so while we still have Shayna, do you have any thoughts or anything to add, either of you actually, to each other about this world? And, to me as an outsider looking in, it's so inspiring to me that somebody like Kathleen, who lives locally to us, is making a living out of being an artist. And somebody like Shayna and her dad is making a living out of helping people be an
Yeah.
artist.
I got a good one.
Yeah.
Give Shayna a positive token of what your representation or your gallery has done, or what they do on a day
As she's
that
about to-
makes you feel
Yeah.
special and seen, so
Well,
that she can remember.
I would like to
honor
tell
that.
her what her gallery has done for me.
There you go. Even that.
So I think that her gallery, or just being here in Red Bank, to have that quality of work,
Mm.
and it's free. So anybody can go and see it. I mean, I brought the Boy Scouts to come see some of that work. And just that you have that quality of work and you can go and pick through and go through. And I mean, you can see Michelle Dolls, you can see just tremendous artists that are in major museum collections that are right here. And that your dad and you are making that available is just such a gift to the community.
Mm.
And I hope everybody locally takes advantage of it and goes.
Look at this free advertising for Detour. I mean,
Yeah.
no, but it's so true. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people that don't necessarily know to do that, or know that it's free, or like knows what goes on there, that they can walk in and be welcomed, and it's family run and it's local. It's just a really cool thing. You're 100% right. In fact, when Marissa
And
and I,
it's sexy.
yeah, it is. And when Marissa and I were first moving here, as many people that move to the suburbs feel, as we heard the siren before, and all three of us were like, that sounds like home, is, as like Shayna, where she's now doing the reverse. You grow up in the suburbs and then you move to the city and then back. There's something about the city that we all miss.
Yeah.
And the reason why we love Red Bank and we love this area is that there's so much culture, so much art, Basie, and being able to see live music and live shows. I mean, we feel so fortunate to live in an area that has that, which is why we chose it.
That
to be
is
honest.
so vital.
Yeah.
We live in a vital area. Yeah. There are lots of other places that are beautiful, but not vital.
Yeah.
And I don't take that for granted. And it's because of places like Detour that add and enrich and contribute. We are far from
museum.
We are far from boring around here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Shayna, thank you for joining us. Enjoy this week and getting ready for your big opening. We're so excited for you.
Oh, wait, Shayna, any favorite brands? Or we like to do like these little brand crushes. I mean, obviously Detour is your number one right now, but any place around here locally that you miss or can't live without?
Yeah, we love to tag places that just are like our guests' favorite kind of crushes, because I find that inspires me. And we use that exercise, by the way, just to insert color with job seekers who are looking. It's like, what makes you tick? Like, what do you have a crush on? So like, Kathleen may have said Detour, in another conversation, which she just kind of did. Is there anything, I mean, I think that there's so much to be said about having a crush on a local business, but if it doesn't have to be local, but anything that you just feel like is doing things really well right now, because we can tag and share, and if nothing else, it just shines light on some of these companies that are not necessarily mentioned today, or any artists or other galleries or anything.
I think the first thing that comes to mind, and I know this is an international franchise, but it's like locally owned. But when COVID ended, this is just something that sort of changed the course of my life and like my health. I was always very active as a kid, and I went to an F45 class after having not moved my body for literally 2 years. And they made me feel so welcome. I couldn't even do a push-up. I was like, couldn't even like sit down after my first class. And I started going every single day because I knew when I started my corporate job that I'd be sitting every day for 8 hours. So I said, is this going to be the rest of my life where I'm sitting and not moving my body? So I started going every single morning, and now I have switched. There's not one near me, so I'm so sad. But so now I go to the Equinox every day. But I'd say the F45 in Shrewsbury totally changed my life, my health, and like put me back on track. So I would give a shout out to them, because if you're looking to kind of get back into, moving your body,
Moving your body counts for something.
Yeah, it's moving meditation, as we always talk about.
Yeah, it's my therapy.
Yes, it is. Like, it's my therapy too.
Well, way to go, Shayna.
Way to go, Shayna. Way to go, Detour. Very much looking forward to checking out your new space, and good luck to you.
And I'm here for you when you figure out who you need or want to hire. We're good like that.
We can definitely.
Yes. Yeah.
I'll see you so much. Oh, you guys are the best.
Kathleen will see you Thursday. She's gonna pop by.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Take care, Shayna.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I
Oh
mean,
my
how
gosh.
about that?
So cool.
How cool is that?
So
Like
cool.
random
So
extra
cool.
moment this morning. Okay.
Thanks for
So-
sharing your time with her.
Yeah, I agree.
Really
So
cool.
back to you. We'll go back to this conversation of what you wanted to be. Did you want to be an artist when you were little, or
Always.
always?
Always. My mother said it was unbelievable. She could give me a box of crayons and she wouldn't see me for hours.
Wow.
Like as a little toddler. So always.
Wow, I love that. And you know what? Marissa and I have a theory about certain jobs, and maybe we'll add artist to that theory. We always say that the person who wanted to be a teacher tends to end up teaching. It's like a thing that we've learned as we've done this. Or if they're not a teacher in a classroom, they're educating in some way. Myself included, I wanted to be a teacher for 5 minutes in multiple different phases of my life. And although I'm not a teacher in that sense, I'm an educator. And we teach a class at Brookdale, and we teach every day in what we do. But I think artists will have to add to that list, Marissa, of jobs that if you wanted to be an artist when you were little, you are probably at least doing it a little, even if it's on the side.
That's what I get a lot of women that are now, maybe the kids left the house and they're looking for their next.
So I do think that art, music, and dance stay very close to people's hearts throughout their lives. So if they are not able to do that job professionally, they still incorporate that hobby so much so that it almost seeps into their world, because people that are true art, musician, and dance humans can't function without those outlets being filled. It's almost as if they lack oxygen if they're not paying attention to them, which is different than having a passion or a hobby like a sport. Like I love tennis, but I didn't play it for 15 years and I didn't feel as fixated by it. I just missed it. Where
it's a way of communicating.
Yes, art, music, and dance are an extension of the soul.
Yeah.
And when it is ignored, it is a complete issue for a person. I don't know, I'm sure that there's probably some social study on whether or not it's because we're exposed to those things growing up in elementary. I think society shifted a lot when those things became less accessible in school.
Yeah. I think as somebody that grew up as a dancer, I didn't become a dancer. I was very, very close to wanting to do that. And as a child of an entrepreneur and in the staffing business, it's not that my dad ever squished my dreams. In fact, he was always kind of one to tell me to chase them. It was just, you have to get an education. And with that education, if you still decide you want to be a professional dancer, you can do that. And what happened is when I went to college, I discovered communication and writing and things that I wanted to be doing. And I just always danced on the side and choreographed on the side. And I've always found it in places of my life. I also think what's interesting about dance and music versus art maybe too is, I don't know how you feel about it, and I can't imagine that it's not as...
Or writing, I should say. It's sorry to the writers, I forgot to include you.
Well, it's so competitive, dance, right? And it's so based on your physical appearance. And for a variety of reasons, that was never something that I wanted to rely on completely. So do you feel like the art world is very competitive that way too, in that it's very hard to earn a living making art? Or how do you feel that has, because to just give you a quick overview of dance, for me, if your like ultimate dream, if you're a dancer, the ultimate, like you've made it, is still you're in the background.
Right. Well,
so like I was like, if you're a Broadway dancer, you're living your dream, like our friend Cara, who's local, who's now living her dream and dancing in Moulin Rouge, you're still in the background. You're not the star, right? Now that's still the dream, but you're still kind of, it's a true hustle. And you're not necessarily making a true living doing that unless you become one of the like 10 choreographers that do or producers. It's such a small way to make there's no, whereas, even the singers, that some people just get to that background singer place.
Right.
So how do you feel about that as how it relates to being an artist?
So I think there is that in the art world. And I think our culture definitely has a definition of what art is and the role of culture. That's a different discussion.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is, within that, there are different ways of being an artist. And there are different definitions. I mean, there are people that make house portraits, and that's fine. And then there are people who are, not everybody is going to be Jeff Koons. There can only be one or two of those people in a generation. So I think it's really understanding and being authentic and knowing what you love and what art means to you.
Yeah.
And if you're knowing what art means to you, if making a painting for someone's living room and dining room, that's wonderful. Like, I love painting groups. And one of my last commissions, I worked with the woman for about 6 months. I'm like, I paint groups, like I paint gatherings. What's a gathering that means something to you? And so it was a family reunion. And so we flew out to California, and I get the whole family reunion. And you can capture that moment and that love. And that's what art is to me, and that's what's communicating. So I think it's getting people to understand that they can shift their definition of what art means.
Yeah, I love that.
If they can really be true and honest to what art means to them and what their hope and their role is, I mean, I'm spreading my love to them. And that's what art is. It's that hope. And anytime they look at that painting, they have that connection. And that I can be a little part of that is just...
Can you tell us how you started selling your work? Like, give us a little, typically we would talk now about when you went to college. Did you go to school for art? Did you intern? Like, this is a little bit of a different conversation because you have been doing it and you've always wanted to do it. But give us a quick rundown of how this started for you.
So I want to give a shout out to the library. My parents were not museum people. I never went to the museums, but one of my first jobs was at the Monmouth County Library. And if you work at the library, I don't know if I should be saying this, but you're allowed to bring the reference books home. So I would sit there and be like, oh my gosh, like it was a gift into like this whole world of all these art books. And I brought them all back, but I could sit there for hours and just looking at like a Mary Cassatt book. And it was like this whole wide world opened up to me. So support your libraries.
Yeah.
So I went from there, but to get into business, I was like, this is what I want to do. And then when I was in college, I went and I saw the first museum show with Lucian Freud, and it was like, oh my God, that's it. Like, this is what it is. That's what that's it. That's paint. That's painting. Like, this is the world. Like, that's it. Nope, nothing else.
Yeah.
So when I graduated, I knew I had to make money.
Where did you go?
I went to Syracuse.
Oh, cool.
So I took enough classes in surface pattern design that I ended up going into surface pattern design.
For anybody that's listening.
And I didn't want to go. I wanted an art school that had a liberal arts component.
Yeah.
I actually went in as a math major and an art major.
Wow, two sides of that brain.
My husband went to Newhouse.
Okay, yeah. So So I got a job as doing surface pattern design. I worked for Casper and Anne Klein.
Yeah.
And then I got picked up by a gallery and my work was selling. And then I had kids. And it was such a sad day when the gallery sent all my paintings home that didn't sell. And I shifted and I just was like, okay, my kids come first and this is what it is. And I started joining like local plein air groups. I didn't have a lot of time. For me, for my practice and the work that I make, I need a long segment of time and I just have to get into the flow and really focus. And with little kids, I didn't have that. So I just started plein air painting and I did that for...
What's that exactly?
Going out and painting in the outdoors.
Oh, like plein air. Got it. So like sitting
out in the
and
open
doing
air.
it.
Yeah. So like you got to get a painting started and stopped in 2 hours because the light is gone, the shadows are gone. And
yeah.
So in terms of my skill set.
But that taught you how to do it quicker.
Oh my God. When the kids were in high school and I was able to focus, my skill set just went zhunk. So within that whole time, for those 10 years, I was really working on the business side because I was still selling. And like people be like, oh, I want a home portrait. I want portraits of my kids. I want this. I want that. So I'm okay. Here you go. So that was my business experience where I learned all those lessons there. I'm like, okay, this is my commissions contract. This is how this works. This is how this works. So you
taught yourself a little bit of that.
So I want to stop for a minute because Kathleen, the other Kathleen, because we were going to have a Kathleen sandwich today, called this morning and she had a life moment.
Yes.
And couldn't be here. And while she was upset about that life moment, I put a pause on it and said, okay, it's just a podcast. Yeah. Like, sorry guys. I mean, that's all it is. I love it, but like, it's not a big deal.
Right.
Yeah. We'll do something else another time. And she had mentioned that she's like, life has just been very crazy lately. And, I don't want to speak for her, but she wasn't sure when she would be able to recommit. And I wanted to take a second and say, like, look at how elegantly you just said, okay, so for the 10 years, okay, to someone like Shayna. That would like
Yeah.
power her down completely, right? But like depending on where we are in our lives. But for the 10 years in which you were raising your kids, you had to breathe in and breathe out that the way you loved to do your work could not be because you didn't have the time to give it.
Right.
And that was okay.
Yep.
And by the way, that is so phenomenally profound because your art and being you knew you had the boundary. You couldn't do it that way. So you had to come up with a different way. Where most of us parenting are struggling trying to figure out how to reconcile being us and being there for them and all of the things that come in between. I'm jealous of your boundary.
Right.
Okay. I also admire that instead of making your boundary feel like a noose, you redefined it to something different and then came back to it.
Yeah. It
So
was a skill. It was 10 years of just skills.
You were able to zoom in and say, I'm going to do it this way until I can't.
Yep.
Or until I can do it the other way again.
Yep.
And it's funny because I came to art when I was very young. And I don't call myself an artist by any means, but I did have a side business for a long time that was art driven. And my life right now does not permit me to do art projects, but it was something I really truly love to do. And my mother is an artist, and it was incorporated in her life. And I think, I think that's why I respond so well when I meet people that create art, because I really love it.
That value system was instilled.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
But what I wanted to say about your professional experiences to all of my fellow parents out there, and not even parents, screw that. Anybody that is in a moment where that moment is not suiting you to be able to focus on your professional life the way that it had, whether you're grieving, you're experiencing life's moments, and your professional life has to pause, change, turn.
Grieving, kids,
any major life change where you have
a
to
big
shift
move, which I think a lot of people can relate to when you move to the suburbs and you're like, what am I doing? Am I going to continue
You have to
commuting?
shift your quadrants to focus on another piece of your life that may or may not be more important. It's okay.
Not only is it not okay, it makes you better. It teaches you lessons. And it enriches you. It gives you a whole new perspective take that you didn't have before.
Patience, appreciation, ability to pause. I mean, think about these words. They're so hard for so many of us, me included.
Yep.
Like if I don't feel motivated, I feel, I'm either motivated or I can't do anything.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that probably we all agree on that. But being able to say like, okay, this is what I do. This is what I love to do. I can't do it this way. So I'm going to do it a different way until I can go back to doing it this way.
Yep.
Amazing.
Or, listen, I think what's really inspiring about this conversation too is that if you can't do this for a living, okay, you're not Shayna and your dad owns this incredible space and he's allowing you to help him open a second. If you're not Kathleen and you've been doing this 20 years and you've figured out a way to earn a living doing it, and you just love it. Like I told Kathleen this when we first spoke, there's several people locally that just started doing this like on the side. My friend Liz Gluck, who I'm going to shout out, who I met through the PTA in Fairhaven. And I like Renee, where I was like, you're so talented. She was painting on postcards and doing these little, I don't know if it's paint or sketch that she does, photos of people's homes, which I love.
What you called that out before, right?
Yeah, well, there are so many different ways to be an artist and to be creative.
Yeah.
And I think that it's teaching that there is space for everyone to be themselves and to share their love. And if you're being authentic and making something that you love, there's an audience there. Like people like, to make it really simple, everyone has a different personality and everybody has friends. You're not friends with everybody, and that's okay. And that's what making your own art is. It's not going to be for everyone, but you're going to find your people.
So I think it's interesting. We're sitting here having this conversation. Three of us are sitting at this tablecloth with our backdrop. And what you guys can't see around us is we're actually in a very miniature museum of Ming and his collaborators and their version of art. There's not one thing in this room that's not decorated. There's 17,000 magnets on the fridge. There's all different branding. There's different props and pieces and photography and art installations and light. And I mean, if you really take a second, we take for granted that we're always in here. But for a pop culture enthusiast, where we are is a slice of their heaven, right?
I was telling this when we were offline, and I tell this story a lot on air, but I'll say again, the first time we came to Shared Universe, they were in a different space, which was even more like literally floor to ceiling. Now they have a second location in Bellworks. So a lot of their stuff has moved. And I'm in here, and my husband is actually a huge fan of this type of work. It's pop culture art. It's
Like there's a Golden Girls skateboard over
there's
there.
Here's an example, something I can grab that I won't mess up.
Oh, you're messing it up. There goes a hat. There's
So, like,
there's a
okay,
wall
so
hat
these, for
installation.
those that don't know what these are, this is called a pop, which is a collectible that they sell actually all over Red Bank. But there's a store now that's located across the street from here that sells just these. And also Secret Stash down the street, which is Kevin Smith's store, who's a good friend of Ming, who is one of the reasons my husband knows who he is. This is a perfect example of art. Okay, these are licensed kind of pop figures of people and characters, and you could literally, you name it, you can get it in this like form. Every single
My husband
professional,
has one of Biggie.
Every single
a Bob
oh, is that
Ross
what
one.
we were talking about the other day when you
Yeah,
guys
he's a Biggie. He's a Biggie.
Yeah.
So and this one's signed, so I promised to put it back, Ming. He loves me, and so that's Mike, his partner here at Shared Universe and Secret Stash and all the things. So anyway, my point to Marissa's point is that this was like, I was like, I called my husband after. I'm like, I feel like I'm in a place that you would really like. I'm like, I'm not sure what's happening here. And he's like, you're at Ming Chen's studio. Like, fully knew who Ming is. He's famous in his world of comics and was on a show called Comic Book Men, which was very famous a few years back on AMC. And he has all these amazing signed things around this room. You'll have to come record a podcast and check it all out. But like the whole cast of Stranger Things down there, and what else is in this room that's signed? I don't even know. It's crazy. Yeah, but Marissa, you're 100% right.
Say anything.
This is all
movie
art.
posters. It's all art.
Yeah. Anyway, so tell us,
So the art world used to be like that, where there were only, I mean, back in the day when I was growing up, there were maybe like 5 salons, and it was this gallery shows this type of work, this shows this type of work, and now it's totally different.
Yeah, like what Shayna was
Everything is
saying, she has
okay.
like all different artists doing all different things, showing their work in this space.
Well, even like when I took French in high school, and all through elementary school and high school, and obviously that was the foundation of some of the art that I appreciated because that's what we were exposed to. And I remember going to Paris and going to the Louvre because you're supposed
That's
to.
what you do.
And I remember being like, seeing the
Where's
Mona Lisa
the Mona Lisa?
for the first time, and she was like the size of this microphone, and I was really thrown off.
I feel like everyone says that, right?
But
you see her, and she's like not much, like, right? She's like 8 by 10, not
right,
really.
but that was traditional, right?
Right.
And then I went to Musée d'Orsay, which was Impressionism, which was always my favorite.
Love.
Which I'm sure you can
I
appreciate
love
too,
that.
because that would be
like clouds,
the
but
clouds.
like dots. Yeah.
So I went to Musée d'Orsay and came out with like, I don't know, some print that I bought with like my money and framed and put in my dorm room, right?
Yeah.
But it was literally that. It was modern. It was traditional. It was Impressionism.
Mm-hmm.
It was Renaissance, which I guess was Impressionism. And then we were kind of like done. And then maybe when we were young, who am I thinking of that started with the I am really lost today. He started with the spray painting and became very...
Basquiat?
No, I'm thinking of
Keith Haring?
Keith Haring. Like Crack is Whack and all the things that he did for New York.
Right.
And the signs on the side of the road, and taking graffiti art and making it mainstream.
Yep.
And I think back from art standpoint, when that became more mainstream is when we started to see galleries shift to having other things in them other than what we originally thought of as art.
Yeah. Yep.
So tell us about your gallery.
So I'm this is a non-for-profit. It's 40-year anniversary now. And it's a pretty cool space. We do a lot of nice shows. We're known for...
What did you say it was called again?
The Painting Center.
Painting Center.
So because it's
also in Chelsea.
Yeah, it's artist run, it's nonprofit. That
you give classes there?
No, but we kind of can do whatever we want. So we don't have to subscribe to any sort of art
Tradition.
world.
In fact, we were talking about
Yeah.
how we could maybe have a talk or help some of her fellow artists that are struggling with the business piece. Because I think what you were talking about earlier is that you've had the luxury, if you will, of time to, when your kids were little, to teach yourself a lot of the business side of art.
Yes.
And that is, I think, what you were saying earlier is a
You'd have
challenge.
to want to.
You'd have to want to, yeah.
Yes.
But I think, as you know, if you have an innate desire to make a living out of selling your art, you have to figure out that
you
business
do have
side.
and it is a business, and you
Yeah.
have to run it like a business, and you have to, you know, do your quarterly taxes and save all your receipts, and it is a small business. You
Yeah.
have to run it like a business.
It sounds like
So-
that's a whole other conversation that we could maybe unpack with you about how you could gift some of that knowledge that to some other artists
Yeah.
that you've learned along the way. So
Yeah.
what keeps you inspired? I know you've mentioned some artists that you love, or what keeps you going every day? Is it, obviously you're a creative, so the art itself goes without saying, but do you have a mantra or I think Shayna said a couple things that I resonated with me, like be bold, put yourself out of your comfort zone. What keeps you going every day? If it's another artist that you follow along with that you just inspires you, or is it things that you say to yourself? Is it your customer base? Is it the art itself? Like what keeps you inspired to keep going and doing this?
So my perspective on art as a passion and as a business is that creativity is almost a question.
Yep.
And you're constantly
Love that.
asking that question, and you're constantly looking for that answer and exploring where that goes. And if I'm true and honest with that, searching for that and answering that question, that's my journey. And that's the passion, is that question. And everything else is kind of, the paintings are a byproduct of that experience. And the sales are a byproduct of that experience. So it all comes to really my passion for trying to figure something out and exploring this thing and trying. The next painting is always better. Like, you know, it's that next, okay, I didn't get in that one, I'm going to get it in this one. I'm going to get, and you're just always pushing for that next thing.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
It really is amazing. Creativity is a question.
Yeah.
I love that. Now, do you have any, we talked about this a little bit with Shayna. Do you have any advice? By the way, I just have to say, when I was marketing this episode, I found the best quote, and it literally only Googled for like a second, but I loved it, which was from Picasso. And it was, every child is an artist. The problem is staying an artist when you grow up.
It absolutely
And
is.
I
always
think,
talk about that spirituality.
I mean,
Yeah.
that is, how profound is that from Picasso, right? So I think
Mhm.
what you've been able to do and what we're talking about today is to continue that curiosity that you
Yeah.
found when you were a little girl with a box of crayons and left your mom alone. If my kids are listening ever, can you do that? But, you know, do you have
Zero shot.
Do you have advice for people out there that maybe are feeling like they want to try to sell their first piece that they've been doing? You know, they're working a corporate job, but they've been fiddling. Like, this is what I would have loved to have asked Renee today if she were here too. It's like, what made you decide to be like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to try. Any advice for you on how you did it, or how you think in this day and age people should do it? Is it Instagram? Is it a website? What advice do you have to people that are maybe thinking about doing this?
I think this would be a good question for Detour. But the interesting thing is that the gallery model is shifting. Social media has really changed
Everything.
what that's doing.
Yes,
you know,
it's
like
changed everything. Yep.
So the old model was that you would leave school, you'd get in a gallery, the gallery represents you, they do all your marketing, and because of that, they're taking a large commission.
They're
From
taking
everyone.
a piece of the
They're
work that
taking a piece of it.
you're selling. Got it.
That's changing. And the piece that the galleries take are smaller. People are selling off of Instagram. Now there are certain price points for different platforms. I think for people that today are trying to start out, is one, they have to have the skills. If you don't have your skills, and you have to know
Who you are
and what you want to market. I see a lot of artists that are rushing it. You need a body of work before you do anything. So they're going to maybe the gallery with like 3 pieces. And it's like, no, you need to have body of work. You need to know who you are. And then that's okay. And go from there. And it doesn't have to be through a gallery. If your stuff is making it, it's about connecting to other people and being who you are. So if it's about going to that birthday party and making that family happy, own that and do that. If it's about being an event painter and painting at weddings, own that and do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all valid and it's all okay. And there's enough room for everyone. And if that's what you love and your passion, that's valid and it makes
So,
joy.
you know
And
what?
I think a big piece of that, not to interrupt you, is to talk about it. Is like I was saying earlier, one of the trends I've seen, at least with the people that I've met that are artists, I had no idea they were artists.
Right.
Talk about it. Like, you're so talented.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I realize, by the way, that is part of the journey. If you're not ready to tell, the person at soccer that, by the way, I'm this incredibly talented artist, like FYI,
Right.
I'm like, what's happening? But I think that that's a piece of the journey is
You have to
owning
put yourself
who you
out
are,
there.
putting yourself out there, whether it's you post it on your personal page. This is just coming from my own personal experience of Marissa and I discovering who we are as we've gotten older in our careers and talking about it and talking about who we are, what we're good at, what we can do to help you. And whether that's creating a brand around it, like we've done with the Dreamcatchers, or it's just a matter of telling your own personal friendships, by the way, I can make you something if you're interested, and just starting that small scale, but to own it and be okay with, like you said, being in these
Well, I think what you're
niche
saying,
areas.
I think your words are, for lack of a better way of putting it, a bathrobe for maybe somebody that came up from traditional art school, right? So if you went to art school or you majored in art, you may have been programmed that success was defined by a certain process. That if you find your art leads you to a different process, you need to be able to reconcile owning where your art has taken you versus where your art didn't take you.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
And I think you're saying that in a really beautiful way. If you are an event artist, own it. Like the woman who designed, when I wrote a couple of children's books years ago, and my main characters were illustrated by an incredible event artist.
Right.
Brooke Hagel.
And this is a woman that can go into a party and she could sketch us right now,
Right.
with the way we look, and create every single moment in that we've experienced in one piece in that moment.
Right.
And of course, hers were more about the fashion. So it would be about your pink sweater,
Right.
and it would be about the shoulder pad, like in my jacket. She just was able to do that. And, I think what you're saying is really true. Like, know who you are.
Yep.
Yes.
And be okay with who you are, which, by the way, is probably a solid lesson for everyone.
Well, I think that's why I love you ladies, because that's what you teach. I mean, you teach just knowing who you are and sending that. And if you're confident in who you are, the energy goes in the world and you're going to connect with the right people.
You're right.
You're right.
That is who we are.
That is who we are. And really,
thank you, Kathleen.
Identifying your yes, thank you. And really,
actually, that's what we do.
That is what we do.
Oops.
And really identifying what your superpowers are and what you bring to the world and how you can make a career out of that.
Yeah.
Or bring that to your career. It's one or the other. But it's lately, especially post-COVID, it's figuring out who you are on the inside. We always say this to people, who are you in your group of friends? What makes you excited to get up every day? For Shayna, even if she had not tripped into what she's doing, what she just shared about her health journey, I would have probably maybe have said to her, maybe it's something to consider, to think about working in the health and wellness space, because that's something you're super passionate about.
Yeah.
Right. So if Marissa and I's favorite quote is, if you can't find the dream job, find the dream in the job.
Yes.
And that is bringing your authentic self to work, figuring out who you are as a human and how you can bring that to your day job or create a living out of it. So that being said, do you think that you have a superpower? Do you believe, I believe everyone has one, but I think that
Kathleen is the bathrobe that everyone needs in the art world.
Yeah. Who would you say you are in like your group of friends? Like, what is your role in life? Like, what is it that you bring to social and professional situations that maybe the person next to you can't bring? Not to put you on the spot. Besides making things beautiful, and creating a crowd or painting a crowd.
People need other people.
Yeah.
Humans were not meant to be alone. And we were meant to live together and work together and find community. And I think...
And then paint it.
So I paint it, but usually my role ends up being I'm like the second in command.
Mm.
I don't like to be the leader, but I like to be the one behind actually doing the work to make sure that everyone is actually really coming together and enjoying each other and having a great time.
Sounds
I think
like me.
that's my role in Boy Scouts. That's my role in, and even in the gallery. That's what I like to do. I want to bring everybody together and be a real team and work together, because together we can do more. And I know, as corny as it sounds, it's really true.
You a Pisces also?
I'm a Virgo.
I was going to say you were a Virgo. That was my first guess, everyone. It's annoying.
Together we can do more. The
The
PTA uses that, and Junior League. I love that.
September 5th.
You're
September, we can, together we can do more.
September.
Together we can do more is the Fairhaven PTA's tagline, as well as Junior League of Monmouth County. And I just love that saying in general. I've heard it a bunch of times in the last couple of months, and it's so true.
It is.
I think the more you can lean on others, if you're listening and you're like, Kathleen's inspiring to me, reach out. And if you don't want to reach out to Kathleen directly, reach out to us. We'll connect you to Kathleen. That's what we love to do, is bringing, and that's what the Dreamcatchers started as and now has become. Everyone that's been a guest on the podcast, everyone we work with as a dream seeker, a dream partner, becomes part of our, what we call our web, right? So if you're part of our web, we can help you in some way, and or somebody in the web can help you in some way. So we're just so happy that you were here today. And I want to wrap with your crush. We talked to Shayna a little bit about her F45 crush, which Marissa and I actually really enjoyed that workout when we went before COVID. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
We did that.
So one
do you
thing I
have
want to
any
say
crush?
before that is
Yeah.
that women lead by joining together and lifting each other up.
I agree.
And I love that that's what you're doing. And I love that that's your mission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you for welcoming me and letting me be a part of that. I feel the love, and especially sitting between sisters, it's like, it's an even special love that is coming my way. But oh my God, my crush. It's going to go to food, because I love food, but it's the whistling onion. I'm obsessed with the
I love the
whistling
whistling onion. That's a good one. I don't think anyone's ever said that one. That's a good, we'll share and tag.
Crush is Judy Tavel, for a local artist. I really love Judy.
Love it.
Yeah.
I'm going to write those down.
How often are you in the city?
I go in minimum of once a month. I try to go in like 2 solid days. I mean, my job, I'm a professional artist, so my job is to go in. I need to know what shows are around. I have to be at my gallery's openings, so I'm there a minimum of 2 days.
I love that. So. That keeps you feel fresh, right?
Yeah.
It keeps you connected to the world.
Yeah.
Yes. And you need to know what's out there. I think the other thing about art is that it's a constant dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
I'll dork out about art, but art it's amazing. When you make a mark on there, it's a visual language, and you're having a conversation with artists that were there generations before you. And most people that are working in museums or galleries, they all have a couple of degrees in art history, so they know this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're making it, you're having this massive conversation, whether or not you know it, with all these other people
that have communicated like that before.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, in one image,
it's a community.
Yeah. And you can communicate, and within 30 seconds, an image is communicating, and it can be complex and conflicting emotions that language can't do, written language.
Do you teach at all?
I do.
Yeah, I can tell.
So you need to get that. I mean, it's just such a powerful communication. So I need to know who else is out there, what they're saying. Are they speaking my language? And I can tell, I have had just looked at a painting like, oh my God, they're speaking my language. I reach out to the artist, and we're like soulmates.
Yeah.
And I've had these just tremendously deep relationships with people, and I've never met them.
Right, but you can meet them in a different way.
Yeah, but we talk online just because our artwork is so
similar.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I love that.
And by the way, not afraid to share your similarity.
Yeah, not afraid to reach out. I love that.
That's just being comfortable with who you are.
So you have, how many kids do you have?
I have 3.
Okay, 2 boys and a girl.
2 boys and a girl. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm psychic on the side. So, anyone with art though?
So they think like artists.
Yeah.
I think really art is, just like I said, it's creativity is asking a question.
Yeah.
And even when I go into the meetings with school, they're all creative problem solvers. They think outside the box.
Right.
And I tell them that. I'm like, well, sorry, I don't fit in, so you're not going to fit in.
Right.
Like, just welcome to. They learn that really early.
Yep.
And and they know, they've all embraced that they are
I've
creative
decided I think most of
problem
us fit out.
solvers. Yes.
I don't really know who fits in.
No, but I think it's the sooner you embrace that.
But you did say before
Yeah.
that you had an interest in math, which is an anomaly for an
Yes.
artist.
Well,
Unless
I
you were
love-
going to go into like engineering or architecture.
yeah, there are certain brain types that have
that can have a
link.
little.
I have a
link.
link.
My
I have that
husband-
link.
My husband has one of
I
them.
have
Yeah,
I have that as well.
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
bizarre.
so to wrap, tell us anything else that you want to. I hate to use the word plug, but plug about your work, about your upcoming stuff, anything that you have going on, how we can reach you.
So I'm currently in the Noise Museum down in Atlantic City
Okay.
for the New Jersey State Annual Show. I have 2 paintings at the Pedo Museum in Island Heights, which is just a gem of a
I just
museum.
read about this.
You need to go see it.
I just read about this.
The house
Where
has
is
been
it?
it's in Island Heights. It's been in the family for 3 generations, and then it got sponsored. So it's, I mean, it's
I literally just read
historically
about this like
preserved.
yesterday.
It's they have the wire, all the electric wire is
Yeah.
period. So it's amazing to see his studio. It's a fantastic museum. They do 3 shows a year. It's just a wonderful program. The director, Harry Bauer, just has a phenomenal eye. He has some great shows lined up. Mario Robinson is going to have a solo show. He's the 3rd one this year. The middle show is Water. Love that place. Monmouth Museum is phenomenal. They're local. We just have a lovely, thriving art community here that people should tap into. So, yeah.
And where do you teach?
Out of my studio in Fairhaven. So I have private students. I have some that Zoom in. I have some from California that are taking lessons from me. It's finding that connection.
And you enjoy that and balance that in the mix.
I absolutely love it. I think in order to teach something, you need to know it well enough. So it's I love art.
There's a lot of good art beginning, a lot of good art exposure. I know what my daughter was at Canvas when she first, and I think what happens, unfortunately, is these kids' schedule doesn't allow for art the way that it should be, unless it's your number one calling.
I always made family dinners were the priority in our house. Right. I didn't care what sport event it was. You weren't doing it if you were going to miss family dinner.
Fair.
So that was our value system, and maybe meant that they weren't on travel teams, but that's okay.
It's true.
And it is very true. I love that.
That's how we did it. And there's time for everything. Give them a box, let them play. Creativity comes out of boredom. And if your kids aren't bored, they're not going to hold up a paper and go, oh, this could be that. So I think boredom is underrated.
I need to go on vacation with you.
Yeah.
Also, I want to ask a question that I've been wanting to ask this whole time. Tell me your last name one more time.
Beausoleil.
So you guys were French?
So I'm half French Canadian. My husband's family, I think it's a created name.
Interesting.
I was going to say it feels created.
Yes.
So Beausoleil is
but there
beautiful
is a town
sun.
in France.
Yes.
And it's a brand of oysters, an occasion band, and a really expensive sunglasses company.
I'll take all of those.
Oysters and sunglasses with
brand.
Kathleen.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you so much for being here today, Kathleen. I wanted to take a moment to thank again our dream partner that put this on today, our dear, dear friends at Salon 685 who are responsible for our hair color and cuts.
And also our partners in our annual breast cancer events.
Yes. And they are 2 women business partners. They're located right on Broad Street, down the street from here in Shrewsbury. And they're doing a customer appreciation event on May 12th. Take a look at that. If you're a customer of 685, check them out. They're going to be offering all sorts of cool things. And we're just so happy to have them in our orbit too, because they support us so much. They were one of our first kind of girls here when we moved here, because Marissa was looking for a colorist. Yep. And then they became good friends.
I'm very particular about
and they're huge supporters of the Dreamcatchers. So thank you to them for helping us put this together today. And thank you to Connor and Ming at Shared Universe for helping us with our sound. Thank you to Kathleen and our other Kathleen who couldn't make it here live, but we were able to touch on her work. And also Shayna for joining us, Renee, who was supposed to be here today, but is packing a truck for Nantucket, and all the other amazing artists that we weren't able to have on air, but that we will tag and share. And we're looking forward to staying
together. We can do more.
Yeah, together we can do more. And thank you for joining us today, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.